Remington Core Lokt 150 grain soft point. Now, it's been said recently on the internet that these Remington bullets mushroom on impact, and sometimes they can even break up right in the middle of the air before it even hits the target. Now, I'm just going to say that this is a framing of a narrative, and it's very deceptive in my opinion, and I'm going to tell you why. And I think that maybe a little Ballistics 101 might be in order. Now, just so you know, I'm going to try to be as impartial as possible throughout this video, and I'm just going to give the facts here. So here on the table I have 3 different rounds of 30-06. In general, they are all very similar because they're 150 grain soft points. In fact, let me put them all together here. So there's the Core Lokt. Now, if I were to take the casing off of this bullet, it would be just the bullet. And what you see here is a copper jacket with a lead core. Now, what you see peeking out the top there, it's open-ended. You see the lead core peeking out. It is meant to expand and to mushroom, but only after it's gone through quite a bit of living tissue. Usually when it hits bone, yes, it will start to mushroom. So even though these are all very similar, there is at least one difference that I'll point out. The main difference is these are non-bonded bullets, okay? And this is actually a bonded bullet. What is that? Now, a bonded bullet is when they actually bond the lead core to the copper jacket. So what they do, they may melt the lead at high temperature and it'll actually bond it to this copper jacket. So yes, this will be a little bit tougher bullet than what you have over here. So how do these bullets work? These are non-bonded. Well, the copper jacket is just mechanically pushed into and around that lead core. So yes, these will have a little bit more of a tendency to break up. So do bullets in general deform, fragment, mushroom? Yes, but it depends on how fast they're going and what they hit and how dense of material it is that they're going through. Now, let me give you an example of a bullet that did actually mushroom on impact. I believe this is a handgun round, and you can see the lead core there. It pancaked right away, and here's what's left of the copper jacket. Okay? But this hit something very dense. It hit an AR-500 steel target, which is designed to stop rounds. That's about the only time you're gonna see a immediate mushrooming, and in this case pancaking, is if it hits steel. Now, if you were to shoot a tree, yes, something dense, even a rifle bullet like this, it will start to mushroom and deform pretty quickly in something dense. Now, when we're talking about soft human tissue or where you hit a deer, that's a different story. These are actually designed to go through quite a bit before they open up. Freaking fighting fly. Now, let's say the bullet trajectory is coming down here, hits here. Where's it going to come out? It's not going to come out directly in the back of the neck. It's going to come out lower down in the upper back. Okay, so the average human neck is 7 or 8 inches. So if we're going to do a ballistics test, then we would have to account for more than just the 7 or 8 inches. Well, now you're talking, and I don't know what it is, I would assume at least 2 to 4 more inches that you'd have to account for. So let's say 12 inches. Okay, now I bring that up because I have gotten some comments that say, well, why don't you do your tests at, you know, an elevated position? Well, let me explain to you why ballistically that doesn't really matter. Now, when does taking elevation into consideration, when is that a factor? Well, if you're in a tree stand, you're in the moment, or you're a sniper and you're shooting from an elevated position, yes, you have to take the angle into consideration, because your point of aim might be different in order to get that bullet into the heart-lung area. Okay, you might have to aim a little differently than what you would be if you were on flat ground. You got to take the angle of the animal and the angle of the shot into consideration. But ballistically, a bullet doesn't really care if it's traveling straight along, parallel to the ground, or if it's from an elevated position. Now, yes, since you have now not 7 inches of human neck, now you're talking about 12 inches. Well, now you just compensate for that in your test medium, whether it's 10% ballistics gel. Now you just have to test the 12 inches. Now, I realize that 10% ballistics gel is not a 1-to-1 ratio to, say, human tissue, because there are differences. There's bone, dense muscle, what have you. So no, it's not a 1-to-1 ratio, but it will give us an idea. So what happens when a bullet enters the target, whatever that target might be? Well, the copper jacket may start to peel back if it has enough resistance, enough friction, and that lead core will start to mushroom. But these are designed to penetrate quite a bit before that happens, because these are hunting rounds, and sometimes you might need to go through thick hide, you might need to go through bone if it hits bone. But for sake of argument, let's say this enters the neck, and that copper jacket starts to peel back and it petals, and then that exposes the lead core, and the lead core starts to mushroom, it starts to flatten. So the question is, if we were to simulate, say, 12 inches of neck tissue, and then after that something hard to simulate bone, will it even start to deform? Will it start to mushroom inside of that 12 inches? Now, I want to show you something else. So this is a 10% ballistics gel. I fired 3 rounds of 38 special in this. Now I think I might try to dig out that bullet, and we'll take a look at it. Okay, so there is our 38 special hollow point, which I dug out of the gel. And as you can see, the copper jacket did start to peel back, and you can see that the lead core did mushroom. These handgun rounds are designed to mushroom a lot quicker. Now, here's the question. Do you think a hunting round like this, which according to the back of the box is designed for penetration and bone crushing energy, something like that, something along those lines in the back of the box, do you think this is going to deform or mushroom through 12 inches of 10% ballistics gel? Let's go ahead and put that to the test. So what I got set up here is I got 16 inches of gel, followed by 1/2 inch plywood or OSB to simulate vertebrae. And then I have another 40 inches of gel, followed by a full pork shoulder, followed by 2 gallons of water, followed by another 1/2 inch OSB, and AR 500 steel behind that. Now, a couple of these blocks have been used, but it shouldn't matter. We should still be able to tell where our 30-06 is. This just had 3 38 specials through it. This just has a couple pellets. Now that is a 22 long rifle that obviously tumbled here and turned backwards. So really all we need for the test is this first gel block and the 1/2 inch vertebrae to simulate our test. But I have added all this extra stuff in hopes that we'll actually be able to see what it takes to break up or to mushroom. Now, I don't expect there to be any expansion or mushrooming at all in this first block, after it hits the plywood, then it could, since it's hitting something hard, then it could start to mushroom. Now, most people, when they shoot at gel blocks, they get close, they want to make sure they hit it. Well, I'm going to move back 150 yards. I'm shooting at kind of a small target at 150 yards, so if I miss, I'll just have to try it again. Okay, so I hit low and left on that first block, so I'm going to have to reload and try her again. Well, unfortunately, another marginal hit to the right this time. Completely, it went grazed this block and it completely missed everything else, so I'll load up and try it again. Well, this is very interesting. First of all, it was a low hit, but as you're going to see here in a second, it doesn't matter because it tells us what it needs to tell us. Now, again, never mind this. That's that 22 long rifle, but you can see the wound channel of the 30-06, and it starts to fragment here at about 6-7 inches. You can see little pieces of jacket coming out. That there is the 22 long rifle bullet itself. But our 30-06 continues to travel as I predicted. It went through the 1/2-inch plywood. So there was an exit wound. And again, ignore this here. That's another 38. But our bullet is right there. I'm actually pretty shocked. I really thought it would go further than this. But it did get 26 inches of penetration, and that includes the 1/2-inch plywood. And that low hit pretty much destroyed this table, not by the bullet itself, but by the shock wave. There's where it went through the plywood. Yeah, that is an exit wound. Note to self: don't do ballistic tests on hot, sunny days. So the bullet went through the 1/2-inch, entered here. Now let's flip this over. Went through the plywood, and there's our bullet. Very mushroomed out. In fact, extremely mushroomed out. Now, it's not disintegrated, but at 26 inches, that is pretty well mushroomed. Okay, so just a few observations. This bullet did not disintegrate. I was actually able to recover it. Yes, it did mushroom, but only after the plywood, I believe. There were a couple, like I said, a couple little pieces of jacket in the first 6 to 8 inches, but they were tiny. But like I said, I was able to recover this bullet. Also, there was an exit through our simulated vertebrae, and after, it continued to penetrate another 10 inches, 10.5 inches. Now, I know, I can already hear it in the comments. Some people are going to say, dude, it ricocheted off the table. Oh, look, that table is made out of cardboard. If the bullet was truly bound for the table, it just would have went through the table. But no, it continued on through the gel. And I'm actually lucky. It was any lower of a shot, yeah, probably would have went through the table. So granted, this round didn't go quite as far as what I thought, but for the record, I have never said it was a 100% impossibility that it was a 30-06. I've always said it was very unlikely. Now, according to this test, to me, it's still very unlikely because the facts are the facts. Now, another theory that I heard of last few days is a drone that shot a 7.62 by 39, which also is a 30 caliber bullet. It's just a lot shorter than a regular 308 or of course 30-06. But what do you think? Was it a drone? And let me know what you think about these test results. I actually found them pretty interesting. I really thought it was going to go through the whole mess, but it did not. So it is what it is. You guys let me know what you think. All right, thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.